plan for everything, but you can be ready for anything. That's where we come in. Northwest Insurance Agency covers the wait, what? Moments in life with real coverage, real people, and real fast help. We offer sombrero-style coverage that protects your possessions, your loved ones, and everything else that fits under a sombrero. Call us today for a quote at 855-887-5656 or visit us at nwagencies.com.
This is the On the Pony Express podcast, part of the On3 network. Check out all the SMU coverage you need at ontheponyexpress.com. Now, here's your host, Billy Embody.
1, 2, 3, let me go.
Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the On the Pony Express podcast. I am Billy Embody. Thanks for listening. Coming at you on this Tuesday and a big start to the week for SMU football recruiting, which Dean Rawski covered very well for you guys on Monday, recapping the Pony Express weekend. So we appreciate him doing that on the Pony Express podcast presented by Northwest Insurance Agency. Mark Villasana, give him a call, 214-352-5656, or email him info@nwagencies.com to discuss your current rates, coverage, and where you may lack protection. Appreciate him for taking care of us at On the Pony Express. I do have the pleasure of talking about another SMU commitment. Dean got to dish on two of them on Monday, but I've got the latest linebacker commitment for SMU to break down, and we'll do that in just a second, but do want to set the table for you guys. We're also going to have SMU offensive coordinator Casey Woods on the podcast as well, breaking down SMU's offseason right now, where the offense stands, some interesting conversations going on around the football facility around Kevin Jennings and how to take him to the next level. And, of course, his tight end room, which might very well be one of the best in the country, and the ACC. So lots to talk about with him, and he'll be on the show. I'm going to talk recruiting. We'll go into our interview with Coach Woods, and then we'll wrap things up here. So bear with me. I'm still getting back to 100% after surgery last week. So hope you guys, have enjoyed the coverage on the site. We had plenty of news breaking down for you guys. Dean did a great job handling all of the official visitors. He was on site getting reactions, and we certainly have a lot of that at ontheponyexpress.com. So subscribe for just $1 today. We had a bunch of you guys subscribe over the weekend, so we appreciate you guys doing that. Let's jump into it. SMU picked up a new commitment in the class of 2026, its latest defensive addition, and that is Izayah Young. San Marcos, Texas linebacker picked the Mustangs over Baylor, where he was set to officially visit this coming weekend. Instead, he shuts things down and commits to the Mustangs. He also had offers from Pittsburgh, from Tennessee, Texas State, and others around the country. So a nice pickup here for Maurice Crum, a longtime target, somebody who's ranked as the 54th overall linebacker in the country, according to On3, a top 100 prospect in Texas. He can probably play a little bit more of that will linebacker spot. 6 foot, 190 pounds is what we had him at last time. So I'll try to get an updated measurement, but another one of those not so, freakishly sized linebackers, but somebody who's really physical. I like Izayah Young. I like the way he went about his recruitment and talking with him throughout it. You know, he let me know pretty early on that he had committed to SMU on Friday night on his Pony Express recruiting weekend visit for his official visit, and it was just a matter of getting the edit all dialed in and all of those things. But you know, I think he's a really intriguing prospect who has kind of flown under the radar for a multitude of reasons. He really wasn't able to compete the way he would have wanted to at times. I think he battled some sort of ineligibility thing I believe he transferred high schools at one point. So now he's going to get a chance to really show what he can do this fall as a senior. And he moved in before last season. The UIL ruled him ineligible. He really has, I think, a lot of the things that SMU looks for in a linebacker: physicality, ability to disrupt plays, play all over a defense. You see him if you're watching on our YouTube channel lining up on the edge, lining up at linebacker, lining up with his hand in the dirt. And he's got just a really nice motor about him. So a kind of upside hidden gem play here, but he was still somebody that, multiple programs had picked up on and certainly extended offers to throughout the recruiting process and some high level programs. But he really had circled SMU early on in the process and has really been whittled down to Baylor and SMU throughout the process for a while. He saw all he needed to see on his SMU official visit and he dialed it in. So a third commitment on the defensive side of the ball to round out this weekend. Of course, SMU got Hudson Woods. They got Dakota Dixon right before that as well. A really, really good run for Scott Simon's side of the ball as they look to, pretty much be done outside of swinging for the fences on some big prospects. And we'll kind of talk about some of those guys who could be next in terms of, the top targets in just a moment. We'll have a full breakdown at ontheponyexpress.com. I've been working on it kind of all day about SMU's path to a top 25 class and who is really still left on the board, because the success of the Pony Express weekend really narrowed down the group that is going to come in for this final official visit weekend that they're going to have June 20th. So again, make sure you're on the site for that. But they do have some key top targets still remaining on defense we'll talk about in just a moment. Do want to remind you guys as well about our friends at StatusJet, statusjet.com. We appreciate all they do for us at On the Pony Express. Had a subscriber reach out with a very specific kind of ask in terms of what StatusJet could do for them. And I said, yep, they can handle that. Let me link you up with David Henry. Here's his number. He's an SMU alum. He's a diehard Mustang fan, and he will take care of you. And that's what StatusJet is all about. There's no big membership fee. There's no big credit, needed to put down right away to book this. This is at your leisure, and they will still create the trip of a lifetime or, use their vast network to make sure the attention to detail is on point. So make sure you go to statusjet.com for more information or reach out to me, and I'll link you up with David Henry for your discount on a round trip flight today. SMU might not be done on the recruiting side of things for the defensive side of the ball. There are a handful of targets still left on the board, and I do want to highlight a couple of them for you guys. Again, the more in-depth breakdown will be at ontheponyexpress.com. But the big names to watch here at linebacker that are left are two prospects that are national guys. One's Kenneth Goodwin, who's out of Inglewood, California. He's already officially visited SMU. He was going to visit Georgia this coming or was set to visit Georgia this coming week. He ended up not doing that. And he's now kind of SMU, Michigan, kind of hanging around a couple others with a commitment date of July 1st. His top 5 he dropped at the end of May was Georgia, Michigan, Oregon, SMU, and Texas A&M. Very intriguing recruitment in terms of where this one could go. If SMU does get a commitment from them, they will absolutely take it, and they will take 3 linebackers. That is kind of what they would love to happen, in my opinion. I'm not in the building. I don't claim to know everything, but you can't turn down guys like Kenneth Goodwin, Markel Dabney, and Izayah Young if they all want in. And SMU's job, if that does happen, is to navigate and explain how their roles could be different and how they could end up all playing together and all of those things. And with the future of SMU's linebacker core going to really graduate after this 2026 season, it would make a ton of sense for those players to then be able to step right in after redshirting in 2026 or playing a little bit of ball in 2026 and be kind of the focal point along with the 2025 class, Markey and Accor. And then you have your future lined up. So that's how 3 linebackers would work in my mind. And then you see if you can reel in Calvin Thomas, a 4-star, a top 200 prospect for on 3, top 10 linebacker. And he's different from the standpoint of he can play a rush end. He can play a linebacker. I don't know if SMU is going to go all out for him because they do have Hudson Woods, who they like a lot. He's been one of their top targets. He's been a guy they've been on for a while. And Calvin Thomas has Michigan, has Texas hanging around, but he's also high on SMU. He's high on the opportunity. And so they're still hanging around in this recruitment. And as we round out kind of who we'll talk about on this podcast from the defensive side of things, SMU's still in the picture for Landon Barnes, 4-star edge rusher, top 100 prospect from Duncanville High School. He's fresh off an Ole Miss official visit this weekend. Talking with people around both programs, I get the sense that it might very well come down to SMU and Ole Miss. Georgia and Ohio State are still set to host him in the coming weeks. He's also visited Washington, but most people don't think he goes all the way out to Washington. They feel like he ends up at one of the programs that is more in the Southeast, most likely, or SMU. And we'll see if Georgia turns the heat up 100% on him, or if SMU, who's made him a big priority in this class, will win out. Ole Miss did a really good job on their visit. I could see this one going a bunch of different ways, truthfully, but that's kind of who SMU is shooting for at the end of this defensive recruiting cycle. And then I'll also have some notes on where things could go on the defense tackle position at ontheponyexpress.com. They've got 2 commitments. They've got Dakota Dixon. They've got Keith Doty. They've also got a Montre Harris, a big defensive end. So they have guys that are committed. They would love to probably figure out one more defensive tackle to get on board. So make sure you head to ontheponyexpress.com for that and more. Also want to remind you guys that we are also presented by our friends at Mignon, right there in Plano, just south of the H-E-B on Preston Road. You can find an incredible restaurant that has been at it for decades. Dinner 7 days a week, brunch on Sundays. Whatever time you end up going to Mignon, it is a fantastic experience. The service, the staff, the food, the drink and beverage selection is just outstanding. It's also still, while the weather might be a little spotty this week, it is a really nice patio experience. And so before it really heats up, maybe you can sneak in another patio dining experience out there at Mignon. So reach out to them for that. You can make your reservation on Open Table. We appreciate their support of the On the Pony Express podcast as well. SMU offensively has a bunch of different ways it can go. And that's why, again, I encourage you to go to ontheponyexpress.com. But I did want to highlight the offensive line position, and one that I think for SMU is going to be really interesting to see how it pans out, because SMU is in great shape with Kamoy Hoy White out of Hawaii. So it would be the second straight time that SMU ended up taking an offensive lineman from Hawaii. They got Abel Hoopy last cycle, of course, and they are working on trying to figure out if they can get him across the finish line. He's set to visit Cal in Nebraska, but he's a huge priority for Garen Justice and this staff. They're trying to really make a statement with him down the stretch and just keep recruiting him, keep hanging in there. And that would be a really important piece to the interior of this offensive line. When you look at the tackle position, if you haven't read the story that Steve Wiltfong, one of the goats of recruiting, our goat of recruiting, posted at ontheponyexpress.com, Evan Goodwin raved about his SMU official visit. And he's from Bauxite, Arkansas. Oklahoma State, Missouri are a couple of the big programs that are still after him and in this one. But don't count out SMU. It really seems like the visit hit home. Cole Leinert, SMU's quarterback commit, played a big role in the visit as well. So Evan is I think, paying a little bit more attention to SMU, even though it's a little bit more city than maybe he is, I think, maybe even anticipating liking or considering. That was a visit that I think really made a good impression on him. And then SMU is shooting for the stars with Avery Morcho as well out of Ridge Point High School. SMU, TCU, and Texas A&M are battling it out for him. TCU and Texas A&M are going to host him next. There's kind of a thought that SMU has put a really strong foot forward here. They're just going to have to weather these other visits. And SMU is able to do that with another Houston area guy in Devin Ferris, who visited some other power conference programs after visiting SMU and ended up committing later in the summer last cycle. But Avery is looking at schools only in Texas, really. So distance is kind of equal in terms of all of them battling it out. SMU is going to have to overcome Texas A&M and TCU in that recruitment. But again, SMU's been on Avery for a while. It was his first official visit, so at least SMU can kind of say like, hey, whatever you saw on our official visit, school's kind of copied. I don't think SMU really recruits that way, but there is that. They got to put the first foot forward, and we'll see if they can kind of keep their momentum with Avery Morcho going into his last two officials before he makes his decision. And then finally, the last prospect I want to touch on is an intriguing one, Zach Turner out of Duncanville. This is boiling down to SMU Miami from what I understand, and I think he's torn. I really do. I think he's kind of struggled between going, far from home, and I think Miami is maybe at least offering a little bit more in terms of NIL from what I've gathered. And SMU is a program that has Andre Nickerson committed at the tight end position already. Zach Turner is kind of a jumbo wide receiver who could very well end up playing tight end like RJ Maryland. So that's kind of the path, but he's still a tweener, and you just don't know how that's going to pan out. And they have Aljor Miles, who's a very, 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 very good jumbo wide receiver. So really intriguing to see where this one goes. SMU spent a lot of time on Zachary Turner. They are going to hope that the hometown vibe, wins out with him. He is one of the few prospects from this weekend we've not talked with one-on-one just yet, but we will see. We will see how that goes. I really do think he's torn between both programs, and he's trying to figure out what's best. He does have more visits set. He's planning to visit Florida State from what it seems like, but most feel like this is an SMU-Miami battle that's shaping up, and he does also have an Oklahoma official visit, at least on the table as well. So we'll see if that comes to fruition as well. So lots of things going on with Zach Turner, but SMU does want him, and we'll see kind of how it goes there with the Duncanville standout. So before we jump into our interview with offensive coordinator Casey Woods, I also want to remind you guys about the Thomas Auto Group. Appreciate all the great care they took with me and my family selecting our next vehicle. Brandon Thomas Mitsubishi was a great experience. They've got Bob Thomas Ford, Brandon Thomas Subaru, and Brandon Thomas Volkswagen, a great group of dealerships that are right there up 75 in McKinney. So make sure you check out the Thomas Promise today and see what the great experience and care they can take with you and your family in selecting your next vehicle, whether it be pre-owned or new. Make sure you mention On the Pony Express and get employee pricing on those vehicles. So appreciate the Thomas Auto Group. Without any further ado, we go to our interview with SMU offensive coordinator Casey Woods. Well, welcome back to the On the Pony Express podcast. Very excited now to be joined in a peak off-season discussion.
Let's go.
SMU offense coordinator, tight ends coach Casey Woods. Thanks for the time, man.
Man, so glad to be here. Always a fun time.
You get
on
out
the Pony Express, man. Let's go.
You get out of the heat a little bit to come join me during camp season. What is this time of year like? It's maybe crazy, but it might not be as crazy with like evaling seniors and things like it used to be maybe in the past.
Well, so we're doing everything. We're doing
Yes.
everything. So it is a 3-week bender, for lack of a better term, right? So we will do. We've got official visits that are coming in. We are running camps, right, which is a big part of that deal. A ton of those evaluations, to your point, are kind of class of 27, class of 28. Even though there was like a kid yesterday in the class of 26 that we, were excited about. I think that, and then to put all that on top, we are now getting into this this foundation work that we can do with our own team. While Grizz is working with them most of the time, we get a couple hours a week that we can be out there with them and doing that. So that's like, we had our very first one of those today. Went in, had some meetings, got through that, getting ready for tomorrow. Ate lunch, visiting with you, and headed out to camp here for 2 sessions this afternoon. So it'll be, it's going to be a wild day. But we got, it's about 21 straight days of just banging that war drum as hard as we can, and then we'll get a little time off. So that'll be nice.
It's always nice to get that 4th of July vacation.
That's
Hopefully
right.
land some commitments over that time, as guys wrap up those official visits. And you guys had a good run around that time last year. How is recruiting going just overall?
Really good, I think. It sure feels that way offensively, and what it is that we targeted and the fights that we're in now are a lot of fun to be in. This is one that 2 years ago we talked about, hey, we need to get to the point where we can be in a fight with some of the bigger schools that SMU's not competed with in the past. And so now we're kind of in position to do that. And I think that we have done that. And I think that we've really addressed the needs that we need to moving forward. I think we're getting Power 5 football players, that are going to come in and really change the dynamics of how you look, not just up front, but in your skill positions and where you're going with that. I think that we've got 2 huge official visit weekends coming up. One's this weekend, one's 3 weeks from now. And hopefully we're sitting offensively where we're almost done, by that point. That's exactly right. And really can hone in, and we're starting to build out that class of 27 board. That's another, on the 15th, we're allowed to start communicating with those guys. So that's just another layer that we're kind of building towards. And it's 3 weeks, man. Just tape your ankles and be ready to go. So.
Well, on the field, your group, the tight ends, is looking like one of the best tight end rooms in the country. Do you feel that way? Do you see that? Do you watch other rooms?
Cautiously optimistic. I do. I want to praise them because they've really done a great job, and they've got the skill set to be competitive at this league. They can obviously operate within our offense. They're supportive of each other. They're great team guys, and they work hard. They work like professionals work. And to your point, I think that we've got arguably the best tight end room in the ACC. I think that'll put us in contention and position to compete with the rest of the country. And now those guys are going to have to, duplicate the success that they've had here in the past. Obviously, we got RJ coming, still off of his injury. He was out there with us this morning doing some things, so he's getting closer and closer. He's got a good look in his eye, and I'm obviously excited about Matt. And then, Stone, what he does for us, and Adam Moore and Tripp Reardon and all those guys coming up. I really am really excited about where we're at right now.
Stone EB, I mean, is he as close to Tyler Levine level fun as you can get?
Stone is a great team builder.
Yeah.
He is a culture guy. For what it is that you want to do. He's a guy that came in here. He's played 3 different positions since he's been on our campus. He's arguably our second best kicker on our team. I mean, he's got this amazing, vast skill set athletically, and he's a tough guy, and he's about the right things, and he's a hard worker, and he dates one of the prettiest girls on campus, and he does, He does all that. He is the all-American guy, and so he graduated this spring. So we got one more year with him. So. He's definitely a culture builder. What we do offensively, we get the chance to put him in position to really make some of our run game stuff go. And he's athletic enough to be in space and not be a liability. So that's been fun. It's been fun having Stone on our team.
As difficult as it was to see RJ go through what he went through, it did allow Matt Hibner to break out. What does that mean for both of them to be back this year? Because that's a unique situation.
Yeah.
2 guys that can play that.
No
that
question. Well, I think a year ago that we thought we knew what we knew about Matt, and I don't think that we fully knew yet. We did know what we knew about RJ, and it was fun to watch his skill set transition to the ACC and still have a lot of success, at the Power 5 level. I'm sure that was encouraging for him moving forward. I think both of them were super supportive of each other, but kind of like feeling each other out. I do think that in the long term, you see God at work in these things sometimes. RJ's injury was certainly gave an opportunity and opened a door there for Matt to really step into that role and do a great job. But I think it also put RJ in position to develop some of the rehab habits and things like that he's been able to do and come together. And now both of them are super confident at this level, working alongside each other. Both of them have seen how this offense can support each of them, what they want individually for their, for themselves, and ultimately their vision of playing in the next level is. And then also still being able to be arguably 2 of our best contributors through the skill position room, on offense. So I think looking back 3-4 years from now, we'll all look back and say, man, that was what a tough thing that RJ had to battle through. But ultimately there was purpose in the pain of what was going on with that. So
Texas. 2 outsiders, we are just cowboys and horses, But we all know that Texas has the biggest, most beautiful cities in the world, from the state capital of Austin to the busy highways in the large city of Houston. Or maybe you might be in the history-enriched city of San Antonio. Possibly you're in the greatest one of them all, Dallas, Texas. Point is that no matter which corner of this great state you're in, you're covered under the sombrero of coverage with a true Texan. Northwest Insurance Agency. Call us today for sombrero-style coverage from the best in Texas.
How do you manage it when they're both healthy and they're both
put them both in the game?
You know,
put them both in the game.
So 13 personnel, here we come.
Yeah, that's it. Well, I think that you really saw our offense pushing that way during those middle weeks. We beat TCU and Florida State and went to Louisville, and we were playing close to 40% in 12 personnel. Yeah. We came back. When he got hurt during the Stanford game, we were almost exclusively 12 personnel at that point. So that was, I think that they both give us unique skills that you're not really, one of them being in the game doesn't take away any part of your offense, right? But they both have strengths within that offense that really allows you to be super versatile. And when you can have both of them on the field together, which is where we were really getting to at the beginning of last season, now you really got something to work with. So really excited. I think when they're both healthy, that's even better for us. I think that's even better for them because now that gives us offensive presentation versatility and still being able to do it at tempo with two guys that have proven to be weapons in the pass game and great space players, weapons in the perimeter game. And then still being able to execute everything we need to up front to run the ball and pass protect.
It seems like tight ends are a quarterback's best friend. Having Kevin back obviously is a huge deal for those two. What does it mean to have those two back for Kevin, and how have you seen that kind of chemistry with Matt and Adam Moore and some of those other guys kind of evolve as Kevin's become the guy and now looks, he looked to Matt a lot.
That's right.
The back half of the year.
Yeah, I really think that that chemistry has developed, like you said. I think that this is a tight end friendly offense. I think that we've been able to put guys in position to have multiple guys in the same season to have success the way that they have, and I think that. With the loss of all those senior receivers that we had, obviously we got two that we feel really great about, plus all these freshmen that are coming in and are really going to help contribute. But we got to have two guys that have been consistently in the rotation there with RJ and Matt, and is really been helpful to Kevin. And Kevin is a great communicator. He tells us what he likes, and he tells us who he likes, and he tells us how he wants to throw it and what he wants to call, and he's And he does that maturely. He does that in a way that's, this is what's going to give me the best opportunity to have success and distribute the ball. And I think both those guys have done that. And I think that he took this spring as a great opportunity to come in, develop the relationships with the guys that we've got. They've got, we're going to have, of any other position outside of maybe the offensive line, we're going to have the most combined reps headed into the season, I think, from our room. So really excited about where we're at right now. Obviously, we got to have a great summer here finishing up. We got to get RJ back healthy and out there when he's, when his body's ready to go. And so when we do that, man, I think that we've got a chance to be pretty good on offense. So
Kevin's experience this past year, what does it do for him in terms of being able to lead more, to be confident in all the work that he's doing is because he's the guy?
That's right.
And it is, a world where being the starting quarterback, it's a full-time job, but you also got to go to class and do all those things.
No question about it. Well, I think for the man, knowing that he's the guy and knowing that he's really taken on that role. It's kind of a two-part answer for you a little bit, but yeah. I think that he is one. He's embraced that. That's given us confidence. We knew because we pushed spring practice later, we were able to do a super deep dive into our offense, which was nice. Really, the first time we've been able to do that since we've been here from an off-season standpoint.
Because each year you guys have been changing a league or this.
That's
or that,
right, and changing and spring practice was super close, and we were changing quarterbacks, and so being able to get back there and dissect our offense and saying, hey, this is what he's really good at. This is what, and having communications with him, but this is what he's comfortable with, and this is what he wants to do. all that is really, I thought that let us really progress. One thing that we've done a great job of since we've been here is being about players, not plays, right? So let's take what they're best at and let's accentuate that in the offense. Not just Kevin, but everybody on our team. And then being able to apply that. And I thought we did that this spring. I think that we're going to have a chance to really hammer through that and maybe even get to some next level stuff as far as situational awareness and making sure that we're coaching up those things that it's going to take to continue to play football after college, and getting those guys prepared for that. And then kind of the second part of that too is almost like an RJ thing. Boy, you go out and I was actually talking at lunch with a guy about the turnovers that we had and the lack of success that we had in those last two games. Yeah. I think put Kevin's mindset. He had he has jaw set differently when he showed back up in January. He was nobody felt worse about it than he did. And I think he came in and said, man, if I'm going to be a all-ACC quarterback, which he's certainly got the talent and the caliber and the schedule and all that sort of thing to do, then he's going to have to, be serious about taking ownership and being the guy that's over top of all this thing, taking ownership and protecting the ball, and I think so maybe there's an element of that, boy, those struggles, that pain that he had, there being some purpose coming out of that, and really have seen a different demeanor out of him the last 6 to 8 months. He's always been a great leader from the standpoint of he has an infectious personality. Mm-hmm. So he gets in there and there's a calming sense. When he steps into the huddle, everybody feels, like, okay, here we're all on the same page and ready to go. And so being able to have that, and now you bring in the support of being the full-time starting quarterback, and now you bring in this offensive analysis to make sure that we know exactly how to support him the best way we can, and then taking some of these seniors that we've been talking about and putting them in the right position to have success is going to give him, first of all, but then ultimately our offense the best opportunity to have success.
When you look at the turnovers, and obviously he took ownership of them, he felt bad about him, all those things, you can't coach the aggressiveness out of him, but at the same time there is some of those things, like how do you get across that you can't do X, Y, or Z in these situations without either hurting his mentality because it's a part of what makes him so great, like,
no question.
If there's a throwaway here, hey, look, we're in business there, or
That's
some
right.
of those things.
That's right. So
peel back the curtain a little bit.
Yeah, it's really good. That's a great question. It really is, and I think that it's a little bit two-part. One is the thing that we told him early on when he was first taking over that starting position, and then he got kind of pressing there, those last couple games and everything. But the system is designed to support you distributing the ball. We've got great skill players around you. You're not here to win the game. Mm-hmm. And it's not your responsibility to win the game.
The air raid.
That's right.
Or
it's not
like
your
that.
responsibility to win the game. We got great players, so do that, and the plays will happen. He is a natural playmaker, so it's like let the plays happen to you. Don't go seek the plays, right? So you play within the system until you can't, and then break down. But when you get back there and then you start taking off, looking around, you're looking to make a play. That's when you start pressing and when you start forcing and when you do that. And then the other side of that, to what you said, is teaching him, hey, on 2nd and 13 at the -4 versus Stanford, and we're ahead 3 touchdowns, you don't need to force a throw. Yeah. You know what I mean? There's no reason we end up throwing an interception. That was the only points they scored the whole day. Yeah. So it was like, let's understand where situational awareness is down and distance. Mm-hmm. It is scoreboard. It is field position. Mm-hmm. And then there's great opportunity. We're 2nd and 10 on the 35, and we're up 10 versus Cal, and you got a chance to scramble over here and maybe make a throw that we'd advise other guys not to, and you do it and hit it, and that's great. You know what I mean? Like, we don't, to your point, we don't want to squash his creativity because that makes him great, and we encourage, and we want to put him in position offensively to get him in places where he can do those sort of things on the field, and then I think that knowing the game situation, he's got to be so in tune, and that's what he's spent a lot of time is understanding the development of a 2-minute drill, understanding when we're playing from behind, when we're playing from ahead, when are the risk-taking times, no one ever wants to throw an interception.
Right.
But if you throw one on a deep ball right here and we're on the plus 48, then that's not going to kill our team.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's as good as a punt.
Yeah.
And so, but like, let's not put our defense in a bad situation if we're in these other situations. So I think that you can go play by play through the turnovers, but not just that, through some of the playmaking decisions that he had to make on the fly, and explain and show him on film, like, hey man, do you understand the difference in this game during the second quarter and this game during the fourth quarter? You know, and so I think that there's for lack of a better term, there's a stoplight mentality, right? Green means go get them.
Yeah.
Yellow means let's make sure we're cautious here. Red, we got to protect the ball. You know what I mean? It's like we no risks. And so I think that there's places that you can interject that into his game and make sure that he understands how we're seeing it.
Yeah.
And the more he does that, that's actually going to playing within the system and knowing the situation is going to actually give him more freedom in our offense rather than less. And I think that that'll make him really understanding when he can push a play and attack the things that he sees and is able to communicate us. And I think that I think he's made strides through that all spring.
Well, as we look at the modern game of college football in particular, so much playmaking, so much about throwing different arm angles or doing this or doing that, or your ability to create out of the structure at times, and it's starting to almost for some quarterbacks seem like it's what can you do out of the pocket? What can you do?
That's
different
right.
arm angles.
It's the Johnny Manziel generation.
Yeah, where I was, my coach would be all over me if I wasn't over the top.
That's right.
You know,
That's right.
The Joe Montana.
That's
type
right.
Is that just something that you kind of take the good and the bad a little bit with? But
I mean, you got to adapt to the modern game, right? And make sure that
Kevin's talent is apparent and so special, and I think some fans or commentators or whatever is still adjusting to what is this new basketball on grass.
That's
in a
right.
way,
Yeah, there's some of that to it, and I think that that's where he's got to play within the system until you can't.
Yeah.
Right. Play within the system. Just distribute the ball. Keep doing what it is that you're going to do, because he doesn't. We don't have to take time to practice him taking off and doing some of the magical stuff he does. Right. You have to take time to practice that. Now, what we may do is we may practice a scramble drill or something like, hey, when he does break the pocket, what are we teaching the receivers to do? We can play into some of that playmaking ability to help him when he is on the perimeter doing some of that stuff. But those plays are going to happen for him. You know what I mean? He's been playing his entire career. And one of the things that I think first drew us to him at that playoff game we went and watched in December that first year was the fact that he tried to play quarterback. He tried to stay in the pocket. He was delivering 3rd and 7 throws. He wasn't eyes on the ground trying to figure out where to scramble and do all that. And he made some key plays in a game that they ended up, blowing away and ultimately ended up drawing us enough attention to go offer him a scholarship and get him here, And so I think you kind of got to take the game with what it is, and you put again. I think I said this earlier. It's about players, not plays. So we are going to take our players, and we're going to take the skill set that he can best operate in, and we're not going to be rigid within our offense. We're going to make sure that we're flexible enough within our offense that he can have success, and the guys that we're putting in the game alongside him can be in position to have the best success at the key moments when we need them to have success. When we're 3rd and goal down there against Clemson, and we got to throw the game-tying touchdown that we can execute that play, and everybody's where they're supposed to be, and Roderick Daniels can go make a great play, and Kevin can make a great play, on both of those. So I think that we are getting closer to that. The longer you have a quarterback and the more familiar, you'd asked this earlier, the more familiar he is with what it is that we're doing, then the more you can grow and the more success that you ultimately can have.
I think you were still ripping off tags of your SMU gear you were wearing to that playoff game. That when you saw Kevin,
oh gosh,
the tissue paper was coming off the Nike gear.
Man, I'm telling you,
time flies.
Crazy.
What's the ride been like?
Crazy. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
You wake up,
coach.
Life of a coach. You wake up and you got 3 kids in school, and you're like, golly, you realize how fast it happens to you, man. The days are short, but the days are long, but the years are short, and it's fun. Rob Likens sent a text to me and Rhett this morning just talking about, man, the goodness of what we've been able to be a part of, and it's far beyond us, right? It's just the situation that we're here, and the investment of this school, the investment of the alumni, the investment of the fans, the investment of sports information, the investment of everybody that's been a part of this thing, we've all been able to take this thing to the next level, and to be blessed to be a part of that, you know what I mean, and be part of something that's really not as good as, like, we don't even know how good we can be yet, I don't think, and so it's everything kind of compounds on another. We got to continue to recruit at the level we're recruiting at. Then we got to continue to play at the level we're playing at. We got a tougher schedule this year than we had last year, so we got some real opponents that we're not going to be able to sneak up on. And I think that it's a blessing to be here. It's really it's a fun time to be here, and I think that if we can, just hold on, hold on, keep riding as hard as you can.
This upcoming year, you don't. Well, we were sitting here last year, and nobody knew exactly what Brashard Smith was going to do.
Yeah.
You guys had some inklings. Maybe he could have some fun, but now you're looking at a running back room that has all new faces pretty much. Some, true freshman into a redshirt freshman. Derek McFall is trying to step up. Chris Johnson Jr. You got T.J. Harden coming in later this summer. Jermico Green is out there now. How do you guys? What's the hope? How do you find the run game that greatly benefited Kevin last year?
That's right.
And the entire team.
No question. Well, I think if you asked us a year ago sitting here, I don't know that we'd have said, Brashard Smith's going to be a 1,300. Yeah, he's going to be an All-American. But, he's going to be a great player for us, and we can do some things. But we didn't know exactly where he could push it. And at that time, we still had some proven backs that were on our team, Yeah. And so to be able to come in now, there's kind of a cautious optimism with that, too. It's like when the ball's in Derek McFall's hands, he's a different player. When C.J. Johnson's a guy that really flashed this spring that we weren't sure what that would look like, it's like, okay, that's not bad. Obviously, T.J. Harden's got 2 years' worth of resume and production, you know what I mean? When he finally sets foot on campus and has a chance to move forward with him, then that'll be great. I think Jermico Green is just a guy that you saw this morning running around, you're like, oh man, these are different looking freshmen than I've ever experienced before. All those receivers that we have out there right now are like, man, if we keep building on top of that class, we may have the best. We're gonna be able, we got a chance to be good. Yeah. So it's exciting. I do think that somebody's got to take the first carry, and you got to find the run game that we ultimately decide to get behind to help us, produce throughout the field. Who are the best runners of that, and how do we do that? I think that, again, we're players not play offense. I know I said that a bunch, but all those guys are touch-deserving guys. And so you just got to figure out what level of creativity you got to get in. Are you going to get your touches through traditional run game? Or are you going to need to force it to get, perimeter runs and stuff, which we had to do really early in the season with Brashard until he really took the full load of everything that we were doing. And so I think that there's versatility in our offense and what we're doing, and those guys are. Coach Grizz he came up to the office the other day and said, hey, our top 3 fastest guys on offense in the running 10-yard split, and 2 of them were running backs. So it's like, we got some juice there, and I think it's always fun to be that way than the other, and I think we'll put those guys in position to have success.
Close out offensive line, a little bit of a new look. Some guys back, some guys, stepping into new roles. Addison Nichols at center, and Josh Bates comes in and he's fighting. It just seems like a group, though, that is anchored by guys like P.J. Williams, Logan Parr. You've got Savion Byrd back. You have a lot of different names, though, that could end up being that 5 that come November are the group you're rolling out there. Is that different than last year in a sense?
Yes. The biggest thing that we've had is to start with, I think that this is the best offensive line we've had since we've been here.
Yeah.
And that's testament to Coach Justice and what he's been able to go out and get done and get on our campus, and we're in position. I think we've got 4 offensive tackles that if you walked onto Texas A&M's campus, you'd be like, okay, well, these 4 look like those 4. You know what I mean? So it's, I think that we've got real opportunity with what you're talking about. I do think that 5th spot is going to be a battle, to make sure that we get that, and there's a bunch of different scenarios. So Zion Nelson's a guy on our team that shows up that's got this unique, incredible ability that showed flashes 4 years ago. Can that come together as he continues to wear and tear on that, on his body? And And then we've got guys like Andrew Shainbley, who's a year more advanced. P.J. Williams, who looks like an NFL player right now. I think that Birdman, and everything that he's got going. We've got great consistency with Logan Parr. We've got a center that looks like an all-SEC player in Addison Nichols. So you're really building something, special there, I think, which is, and to your point, maybe you went into the last couple of years, all right, who's our 8th guy? I think now we're going in and we're like, okay, who's our 10th guy? Who's our 11th guy? We're going to have potentially for the first time since I've been here 10 players that can play in football games, that you really feel quality about your first and second team. And ultimately that's where you win games, is up front. Yeah. And so, because that's where you can be most physical, and that's where you can control the game in modern ball control scenarios. That's where you can control it, is up front. So you're right. I think there's a lot of scenarios still to play out, and we'll see that. I think that what we have proven here is that even like 2 years ago when we had 6 all-conference offensive linemen in a game that only lets you play 5, we've had coaches had 14 all-conference offensive linemen in 3 years. So I think that if you deserve to play and you can help us win, we'll play you here. And I think that we've proven to do that, and I think that we've been able to manage big, robust rooms of receivers, and we've done it with the offensive line now. And tight ends, you can support multiple guys. Running backs, we had 2 all-purpose backs with over 1,300 yards last year. That's like you had all that, and that's why you got to have a master distributor in Kevin who can get the ball. You know what I mean? That's why the pressure's off of him. Is it all right? Well, I don't have to force this play every single time. I can just get it to one of all those cats I just named. And if I do that, then I know that I can have more fun, because then the game's coming to me. There comes the play, and I can. Those are pressure-free plays, which are ultimately what we're trying to get him to be in.
Yeah, awesome stuff. It's been fun to see Kevin and this offense get rolling like they did last year.
That's right, man.
What a first year. We'll see how you guys follow it up.
That's
right?
it, no doubt. That's right. This time next year, we'll be like, oh gosh.
Hey, hopefully we're talking about.
That's right.
Hopefully we're talking about who replaces Kevin Jennings
going
off to the draft, right?
All those juniors that think they're going to play in the NFL, we tell them like, hey, if that happens, man, that ought to be your goal, because that means it's good for everybody.
Exactly.
If you played like that. So.
Well, great, Casey Woods. Thanks for joining us on the Pony Express podcast.
Appreciate it, man. Go Mustangs.
Great time talking with Casey Woods. We'll also have running backs coach and special teams coordinator Kyle Cooper on the podcast as well. Chatted with him about his room and special teams and tons of other things on this program, as he's gotten to see it from the first time Rhett Lashley was here all the way through to now making the college football playoffs. So a lot of good intel there from Coop as well that you can expect on another edition of the podcast. Look, I've said it again. Or I've said it once, I'll say it again. Make sure you head to ontheponyexpress.com and join us. It's a great time on the site right now. We're having a good time covering recruiting. There's a lot of off-season discussion. We'll have a lot more and special guests and interviews and all of that on the site. So make sure you head over there today. We appreciate Mark Villasana and Northwest Insurance Agency for sponsoring the podcast. 214-352-5656 is where you can reach him, or email him info@nwagencies.com. Shout out Status Jet, Thomas Auto Group, Mignon, all of our sponsors. We appreciate all of you guys for listening. Hope you guys enjoyed this edition of the podcast. We'll catch you next time. And this has been the On the Pony Express podcast.
Thanks for listening to the On the Pony Express podcast with Billy Embody.
Follow us on your socials on X @SMU_on3 and on Instagram @on3SMU.
And keep it locked to ontheponyexpress.com for more coverage.